What's going on, everybody? Welcome back to Pro v Pro. And as you can see, shout out to Fox, we've got real graphics this time, no generic teal green background. So we're good to go here, Justin.
Yeah, after a fun week and we can get a little bit more official here. And man, there's so much to dive into from what we just watched, from what we thought was going to be a boring Sunday, I think, at one point to, well, it started off, it was going to be super exciting. And then we thought it was going to be super boring. And then, yeah, there's just something about this golf course that never fails.
That turned out to be what I think is the best golf tournament of my lifetime. Not just because it was the result I wanted, but just the drama. And then I don't know if anything will stand out to me more as the years go on about this win than the reaction after the final putt win.
I mean, just from the background of being in contention in a mini tour event or whatever you want to call it, to know how the emotional roller coaster that he went on Sunday had to be. And I thought he did a really good job of trying, like he kind of kept his mannerisms the same. He never got too disappointed, never got too excited. I know you hear that a lot about people doing that, but I was impressed. I really was.
One of those like live hot takes Twitter accounts tweeted something the night before of like, this is the difference between Rory and Bryson. Like Bryson is excited and ready for the moment. And Roy's like trying to downplay the importance. And I just wanted so badly to like scream at that Twitter account, like, yeah, because Rory's facing kind of pressure that Bryson's not. Bryson has every opportunity to just view it as like, hey, tomorrow's going to be a really fun day. And Rory has the entire weight of the world on him and has to try to minimize that to some degree.
And also, like, certain things work for certain people better, right? And I think that's when we talk about, we said this last week about Rory. He is more equipped to win the Masters this year than he's ever been. And that goes from his golf game to his attitude to the way he controlled his emotions. And I think we saw it. We saw all of those things come together that I think, maybe he would have unraveled a few years ago, and he just didn't do that.
You know what I thought was, I had this thought like over and over and over on Sunday, which is I remember playing in my own tournament. So like from my own personal experience, one of the most difficult pressures that I thought there was to deal with, like, this, anyone who has played the amount of golf that we have played or even less golf or more golf, like the guys on tour, that you're going to fail over and over. And whether it was, missing a cut or being in contention and not getting it done, I remember in all of those moments for myself, there was a moment of acceptance where I knew like, hey, I'll be fine. Like this is just one event. There's going to be another one that I can make this up. Where it was very easy to accept for myself. And then I also had the secondary thought of like, oh, but I have to tell my dad I missed the cut. I have to tell my mom I missed the cut. I have to tell my grandfather I missed the cut. And like, it's not that I was afraid to tell them or anything. It's just I knew they're rooting for me, so they're going to be disappointed to hear that, right? And you don't want to disappoint someone else. And good God, like Rory had that for a million different people, right? Like,
Yeah.
You just are rooting for him desperately. I haven't rooted for an individual player like that since Tiger won the Masters. And other than Tiger winning the Masters and Tiger winning the 2008 US Open, I don't think I've ever rooted like that for an individual player in an individual sport. I was rooting for him the way I root for the Phillies in the World Series or the Eagles in the Super Bowl. Like that was a pretty emotional experience just watching it. And every single fairway, every single shot, Rory is hearing people yell to him how badly they want him to win. That was an enormous amount of pressure. And I hope that people can recognize like Rory's just a human being and he feels that desire to give people the result they want. And I can't imagine what that felt like all Sunday, all week, and quite frankly, for the last like 11 years.
Yeah. So there's a couple of things in there too. Like if you notice, and this is definitely a mindset deal, I think one of the worst things that could have happened is how perfect he hit that drive on 18, because he had such an easy shot. And a lot of times when you're in the moment and you have all the emotions, you need something to take your mind off of that and onto the golf shot. And I think if he had a little bit more difficult shot, he would have hit a better shot just because of the way the mind works. Go back to like the big high hooking 6-iron under that. Like he was fully into that shot. He wasn't worried about the moment or who was doing what. He was just locked into that shot and he hit an unbelievable shot. Whereas it's kind of, I know like if you've never been in this moment, it's a little bit different, but sometimes you kind of get lulled into the, hey, this is just another wedge, no big deal, just hit it up here and I win. It's a lot easier to hit a bad shot.
Yeah, my coach and I talk about this all the time where you want to be in a mode of like you're almost problem solving on the golf course. And I hesitate to use problem solve because it kind of infers the existence of a problem and you don't want a problem on the golf course. But the point being, like on that shot on 15, Rory had to figure out what shot am I playing? How far do I need to hit this ball? How far do I need to carry it? If I carry it this far, is it going to hold? What kind of spin is it going to have when it lands? So much, as you said, it's going to take him, that's going to take his mind off the pressure of the moment. There was none of that on 18. Like I guess the problem solved there would be, how far into the slope do I want to take this? Do I want to land it before the slope or let it spin back down the slope like he did the second time around? But yeah, at the same time, it was like all he has to do is put it 30 feet from the hole and he wins a green jacket.
But I mean, we can't discount what Justin Rose did either. Unbelievable Sunday. Like every time you thought he was going to go away, he just never went away. And that putt he made on 18 was unbelievable. Yeah, like I was super impressed by, usually that whatever was second or third round 76, usually that kind of derails you and you're done. And he just didn't let that bother him. And man, a closing 66 to lose in a playoff in the Masters is pretty incredible.
66 with 10 birdies on that golf course. What in the world is that, right? So it's interesting because we talk a lot of the time about like, how you and I both agree that the narrative behind someone being a choker or something is just really dumb. And this very, very well could have been a real choke job by Rory, but also like Rose just coming out and stealing this thing. And it's interesting because let's say Rose instead shoots 2 strokes worse. Rory makes the same mistakes, but still wins by 2. Or let's say he only won by 1. Right? Nobody is saying he's a choker, anything like that. And the only difference is his playing competitor played differently, right? Yeah. Let's say instead of Rose shooting that round, it's Bryson going out and shooting an historic 66 with 10 birdies. Rory loses. Is he a choker because he played exactly as well as he actually did in real life now to get the win? To me, it's just like there's so much variance, and that's why we talk about the fact that it's really, really difficult to win a golf tournament. In its own way, I felt like the fact that Rory made the mistakes he made and came back from those mistakes with the shots he hit, the approach on 15, but also like the approach on 16 was fantastic. Approach on 17 was fantastic. He hit the fairway on 17 after the mistake drives or the mistake drive on 14. And then, of course, by the way, the drives, both tee shots that he hit on 18 were spectacular. I thought that said a ton about his resolve and his resilience.
Yeah, I think a lot of the choke stuff comes from like he does hit some really bad shots at big moments, like disaster shots. I'm not talking about like the wedge shot that he could have pulled and hit over the green and made bogey. I mean, he basically toe shanks it into the water. Yeah. And, the same thing with on 18, like he didn't hit it on the top shelf and make a mistake because he was amped up and hit it up top. He hit a bad golf shot in a huge moment. So anytime that you do that, you have to know that you're going to get people saying that you're choking because those are the type of shots that people hit when they do choke, right? I mean, that's just is what it is. Yeah. The difference is he also hits unbelievable shots in the huge moment too. Mm-hmm. So it's not like he's just pure choking every time because he hit some of the best shots you'll ever see. And for instance, the way he played 18 the second time, right? I mean, that's unbelievable golf hole. So he's got to understand why that criticism comes, and it's going to come forever. If your bad shots are that bad in those moments, you're always going to be talked about that way.
And to me, a swing mistake is just a swing mistake. The mistakes you really want to avoid are the mental errors before a swing. Now, maybe there was a mental error during the swing. Like maybe he wasn't committed to the shot. Maybe he decided, I'm just going to take on this pin instead of using the slope because I'm swinging so well. So we don't know that aspect. But the only question or the only decisions I really questioned were taking driver out of his hands on 13 and 14. What did you think there? Because to me, like I look at the guy who stepped up on the 18th tee and hit those two drives and think, why is that club not in your hand as much as you possibly can have it?
So I do agree. But I also, you've pointed this out and we talked about this a ton last week. He can win this thing in different ways this year. Mm-hmm. And I think that showed that he knows that, right? He understands that he can do that. So he was like, there's no need to do that here. Yes, I do it, but I don't have to anymore. So I'm going to play this way. Obviously hit a terrible wedge shot, but I think that shows you his mindset. And that showed exactly that he knew that he knows the same thing that we've been saying.
Yeah, the only thing I'd say there is I think there's a fine line between making decisions that are just quote unquote smart and making decisions that are kind of like telling yourself how you're feeling about the golf tournament. So like if I was in Rory's situation, I know that one of the reasons why I would have taken driver there is because I want to remind myself that like, yeah, I'm this good. I'm ready for this moment. I'm just going to go execute my game plan. Whereas if I dial back to 3-wood, it's almost like I'm saying, I don't think that I can hit the drive I need to hit. So I have to go more conservative and play defensively. And that's just a mindset that I want to avoid. Maybe that's not where he was. But
yeah, I would have a hard time believing that
it seemed early to me in the round for him to go that defensive on 13. Just because because we know how much craziness can happen in those final 6 holes. So to get that defensive that early, because like when I say the craziness that can happen, I'm not just referring to, Rory could make a double or Rory could make a mistake. I also mean Bryson could have eagled 13 and 15. Oberg ahead of him could have gotten to 11 instead of 9 or instead of 10 and then making a bogey on 17, right? What if Oberg pours that in on 17 and then also birdies 18 to get to 12? So I just thought it was early for him to get that protective of the lead instead of saying, I'm Rory McIlroy. I'm playing incredible this week. I'm driving the ball incredibly well. Like this tee shot suits me so well. And by the way, like he could take a more conservative line off that 13 tee and say, if I miss, I'm missing in the trees, in which case I'm just punching out to the same wedge shot that I can lay up to anyway. So to me, like that was just I had a bad feeling as soon as he laid that far back off the tee.
Yeah, and it's a mindset thing too, especially for a guy that, I mean, how many times do you think he does that this year in any golf tournament?
Right.
Probably that one time, right? I mean, he's not like a – so, I mean, it's a – he knows he's going to get criticized for that no matter what he does, right? Yeah. So –
I will say to that point, though, it is like a good reminder that just because the shot he hit made it like no question he was going to lay up, it is possible that he pulled 3-wood thinking, I can turn this over. I can make a more aggressive swing than I can with driver, worrying about going through into the trees. And maybe his thought was it was 3-wood and then just like a long iron into the green, and he just didn't hit the tee shot that he wanted. So that's certainly possible. Maybe it wasn't such a concerted effort to turn it into a 3-shot hole from the get-go, but like I said, I had a bad feeling as soon as he did that, just because I thought it said he's not in the pedal down attack mindset.
Yeah, he wasn't trying to step on their throats, which, at that point, the way he had been playing, that was a great opportunity to do that. There's so much that you can just go into about the whole week and the way everything went. And, Oberg continues to show that he can play at a top level when he's playing really good. Shane Lowry did a lot of what we thought he would do last week, where he hit so many really good shots and then obviously fell out of contention. Just played the last few holes every round. It seemed like not very good. It was just a really fun, different a mix of play.
Did you see what I tweeted about Oberg? So between the 5th hole of the 3rd round through, I think it was 11 of the final round, he gained something like 6 strokes putting, which he hasn't gained in a single event since the BMW Championship a year ago. And I think he hadn't gained more than 4 strokes, so more than a full stroke per round in an entire event since the BMW Championship last year, and hadn't gained that many strokes that he just gained in like a 15-hole stretch. Then he had, like a 20-some hole stretch than he had since last year's Masters. So I don't know what it is about Augusta, or if it's just random and he's not going to do this in the future, but goodness gracious, he likes those greens. And it was tilting me to no end because I needed Oberg to finish outside the top 20 for a $5,000 hit on Underdog. I then needed him outside the top 5 in the final round, which he did end up falling to 7th. But he made a par save from over 30 feet on number 5. He made a par save from like 13 feet on number 7. He made a par save from, I think it was 8 feet on number 6. Then he made a par save from over 30 feet again on 11, made a par save from like 9 feet on 12, birdies from over 10 feet on 14 and 15. Like, it was nuts how well he was putting on Saturday. And then he just kept doing it on Sunday. And I'm just there, like, every single hole is like, oh, all right, at least he should give one back here. Nope, drops another 30-footer. It was a nightmare to watch as an overfader. He then made another, like, 30-foot bomb, by the way, to save par on 11 on Sunday. Like, it was just nuts, the par saves he was making, and it was tilting my face off. But
did you see his finish, though? Cost him $550,000 making triple on the last or something?
Which, like, the fact that he went bogey triple in the last, it was a 3-putt on 17. So, like, at all the 30-footers he made, he blew one past, which I'm sure he was like, well, what the heck? It's not supposed to miss the hole. They've all been going in the hole and then missed the comebacker. And then, yeah, makes the triple in the last, which just seemed like a slap in the face to me of, like, I could have been doing this all the last 2 days, but instead here I am. I can drop 4 strokes in the last 2 holes and still finish 7th instead of flirting with that top 20 line. So it definitely impressive, but I will say, like, it's not the most encouraging thing for him in the sense that he was overly reliant on the putter, and the approach play has not been good all year. And it wasn't good this week either. He basically just had the one good week with the approach when he won the Genesis. So I'm not entirely sure what to think of him, but one thing is clear, like, when the moment is biggest, he definitely has what it takes and is probably one of those guys that is going to continuously elevate his game in these big events.
Yeah, I saw he was second in pricing in DraftKings behind Scotty. I think that's a pretty easy fade for me, but just incredible. There's so many storylines and so many little things where all the focus was really on Rory. I mean, we haven't even talked about Bryson and what we think about the way he played. Obviously, coming out early, we thought he was going to – the way that, the first hole or two, we thought – I thought I was like, well, this is pretty much going to go win this golf tournament. And then he struggled, so.
Here's one for you. I just noticed this. Something happened for the first time since, let's see. Holy crap, this is a long time. Since May 22nd, 2022 in the PGA Championship. Can you guess what that thing was?
It has to be something about how many shot swings there were early.
No, it's about a specific player and a specific skill set.
I don't. Is it Bryson? It's got to be Bryson involved. That's who we're talking about.
It's Scotty.
Oh no! What is it?
For the first time since May 22nd, 2022, Scotty Scheffler lost strokes off the tee.
That is crazy.
And still finished 4th. he was another one that I had. I needed Scotty to finish outside the top 5 in the final round. Ended up finishing 4th, shot 3 under. But like all week, it was clear he didn't have it, particularly off the tee. The fact that his I wouldn't even say that was his B game. That was like his C minus game, at least with the ball striking. Putted the lights out for 4 days. Had an even hotter putter on par saves than Oberg. But if Scotty's finishing 4th with his C game, we could be in for a seriously cool year of Rory versus Scotty, just over and over and over again in these big events. And we still have yet to see like Rory and Scotty in the final group, 3 clear of the rest of the field. But I have to think that's coming at some point this season, and it's going to be glorious when it does.
And he did this somewhere else with a different part of his game, maybe putting or something, where he like putting or approach, he was just terrible and finished like we got done, finished 3rd or something. We're just like, how did he do that bad and still finish in the top 5? It's just amazing.
Yeah, I mean the API was an interesting one because he lost over a stroke per round putting. His irons were the worst they had been since the BMW Championship last year when he finished 33rd, and he still finished tied for 11th. Like I don't think we have ever seen in my lifetime a player with the floor that he has. Tiger had a similar floor of results, but Tiger was playing against much weaker fields. So, a Tiger 10th place finish was like a Scotty 20th place right now. And Scotty doesn't finish outside the top 20. It's just completely remarkable what he's doing from a consistency perspective, from a floor perspective, even though he hasn't won yet this year. It's almost just as impressive to me.
Yeah, and you got to think he's winning soon, right? I mean, and if he's struggling with a driver, what a better place to win than this week where you don't have to hit very many drivers.
It's also there might be an element of Scotty was trying to get some distance out of it, whereas now he goes to a golf course where it is all about accuracy off the tee. We'll talk about the course fit model. We'll talk about the Heritage coming up, but that definitely might just get him to, think of the fundamentals and just make good swings over and over and not try to get a little bit of extra distance some of the time where maybe he felt like that extra bit of distance was worth chasing at Augusta for one reason or another. Any other thoughts that you want to touch on about the Masters?
No, I mean, it sucks that we have to wait a year for another one, right? I mean, that's the biggest deal.
Isn't that the truth? Yeah. There was one other thought I had. I do want to say, I think there's something about the Masters that brings out who a player is and not who they have been lately. And what I mean by that is on a typical event, when we are modeling the golf tour, we're building our projections and then using those projections to build simulations, all that good stuff. We have a balance between long-term form and recent form. And I think that the Masters and probably all major championships as a whole skew a lot more towards the player's long-term form than recent form. And I have backed that up to some degree with data, but I also think just like anecdotally, it is kind of obviously true. Like Max Homa hadn't made an actual cut in over a year and finds it here, right? Sepp Straka has been automatic this year, misses the cut. It's obviously those are just 2 examples, but there are so many guys in between, Patrick Reed, Bubba Watson, where it's just about who you are, and that's really going to come to the forefront at Augusta, which I think is part of what makes it so magical.
And it's so different than any other golf course they play, period. I think that's why you see kind of the same guys like that had, I mean, Charles Schwartzel's finished dead last on live every event, and then all of a sudden he makes a cut and finds his way into playing decent. I think it's just such a different test.
Yeah, completely agree. That was a thought I was sharing in my own Discord the other day, and I just wanted to share that here, by the way. I'll let this scroll at the bottom. If you want more information about my new Discord, you can find that in the link in my Twitter bio at AlexBlicka1. So go check that out if you are interested. All right, Justin, I think it's time to move to the Heritage. Let's talk about this course fit model because it is another really, really strong one. In fact, it's one of the most reliable on the entire PGA Tour season. Driving distance, slightly negative weight. I think most people would guess that it was significantly lower than this actual weight. So I do think it's worth noting, like, it's just as predictive as it usually is, which is quite predictive. Driving accuracy, though, our strokes gained driving accuracy metric over at FTN, 73% more predictive than usual here. Driving accuracy tells a massive amount of the story at RBC Heritage at this Harbor Town Golf Links golf course, which is, by the way, one of the best courses on tour, I think. Would you agree with that?
Yes, we that's what I was saying. It's so unfortunate that they play here after the Masters. Such a good golf course. It's a cool place. Like, yeah, it's definitely unfortunate that they're here this week.
At least the fact that it's an elevated event means we get to see the best players play this golf course, because I do think, like, that is a major step up from where it used to be, where it is such a great golf course. It forces so much creativity, so much shot making, and this not quite the level of creativity around the greens, but you can see plus 30% predictive value for around the green play. Similar, not quite as high as at Augusta, where it's over 100%, but you still get like that need to be creative and sharp around the greens. Negative 19% for approach play, and then plus 1% for putting, so pretty much right in line. That negative 19% for approach play, by the way, still means you have to be good with your irons. I think that negative weight is just about how important driving accuracy is. It doesn't matter if you're a great iron player. If you are in the trees, you can't take advantage of that iron play. So amongst those guys who are very accurate off the tee, I think iron play still matters a ton. It's just really, really difficult for approach play to be predictive when driving accuracy is this predictive. Any other thoughts that you have here about this course fit model, and any names jump to your mind about who fits this place really well?
The approach play deal definitely. There's a lot of places, even when you do drive it in the fairway or close to the fairway, that you have some kind of overhanging tree and all of that kind of stuff. It's not just a straightforward iron shot. So I think has a lot to do with that as well as you don't just hit many stock standard shots, even into greens there. It just seems like there's always, you always have to be doing something with your golf ball or paying attention to what you're doing. And I think that shows why the approach play is negative there as well.
Yeah, I like that call. In terms of projections, expected strokes gained, we've got Scotty first, Collins second, Schauffele third. Can you guess who's fourth? He was in contention for a little bit at the Masters. Actually, for a lot of it at the Masters.
Who? Not Lowry, right?
No, Corey Connors. Corey Connors at 0.92. He is, let's see, the third most accurate off the tee behind Morikawa and Aaron Rai. Really solid approach play. And that's pretty much it. Then he's neutral in every other category. Another guy who really stands out, I think, is Russell Henley. Henley has the accuracy off the tee, approach play right in line with Connors. He has an advantage over Connors with both around the green play and putting. He's just way behind Corey Connors in driving distance, which, as we said, like, yeah, it's slightly less than usual, but it is still important here. So I think Henley is a guy who I used him on DraftKings this past week. So I don't know if you saw his second round, but after a disastrous first round, he starts off with just like one of the worst iron shots you'll ever see him hit on number one, makes bogey, disaster of a second hole to make par, and then was just lights out with just flag stick after flag stick after flag stick until he bogeys the last hole to miss the cut. So roller coaster of a round for him, roller coaster over 2 days for him, but there was an awful lot of good golf that second round to make us think he's going to come in here ready to go. And I think it's a perfect segue to my next question for you, which, do you think there's any like mental hangover where it's almost a benefit for this week for guys to not have been in contention or maybe even not made the weekend this past week just because it spared them some mental energy?
Maybe a little bit. I think that the guys that made the cut on the number, just inside the number, never really got in contention. At a place like that, they just enjoy the walk. So I don't know that they're just practicing and they know they're not catching the top of the leaderboard. So I don't know that they're spending a lot of mental energy as far as that goes. But yeah, for the guys that are in contention and grinding out there, I think there's a little hangover. I mean, as I say that, it seems like guys like Scotty are just immune to that. It just doesn't matter to them. And I can't believe we didn't talk about all the disastrous 17th and 18th holes to miss the cuts. Cam Young, DJ, I mean, it was just unreal. All the people choking to miss the cut by one.
Yeah, and it would be so interesting to see how much easier the 18th would play if you made it the 11th. Right?
Yeah, right.
How much of the difficulty was, hey, it's a super narrow tee shot. It's very uphill. The green is difficult. The green doesn't present many good places to miss because basically every single short game shot that you can possibly have is going to be tough on that hole. The bunkers are deep. So it is, in its own right, a very difficult hole. But then you add in the pressure to make the cut at the Masters, and you just see guys make some colossal errors. So, awesome question. Awesome thing to think about. I think it's probably worth a tenth of a stroke. Do you think it's more than that?
Oh, I would take the over. Yeah, I think it's more than that. Just
let's see. Where did it here? We can actually, let's see if there was a difference in the hole. So it played 0.03 under par on day one, 0.58 over par on Friday, where you have the cut pressure, 0.13 over par on Saturday, and then 0.25 over par on 18. So on the one hand, the pin location back left, definitely the toughest, I think.
Yeah.
Because you get that tier. So if you miss short, it's an incredibly difficult shot, even if you're putting. There's no way to take the ball to the hole the way Rory did in the playoff, things of that nature. But it's also a big number, 0.6 strokes over par. No other hole was – the second hardest hole was 0.31 over par, the fourth hole on that Friday. So I think you might be right. I think it might be more maybe a quarter of a stroke, maybe slightly less than that, 0.15 to 0.2, something like that. But, yeah, the pressure of the cut definitely got guys on that hole. That's a really cool thing to see.
All right, so back to what we were talking about. So, just looking at the course fit model and a guy that maybe you wouldn't think of playing good here, does Min-Woo Lee have any appeal here? And let me tell you why. I know your driving distance or your driving accuracy numbers are probably going to say no chance, but he gets the ability to hit 2-iron where most people hit drivers. And we know he's really good around the greens. We know he has the ability to hit it far when he needs to. Does a guy like that that wasn't the first guy that came to mind. The first guy that came to mind for me here was Sepp Straka. But, a guy just thinking about the around the green stuff with Min-Woo, does somebody like that appeal knowing that he can get away with hitting irons instead of having to hit driver off the tee?
Yeah, I think this is a very interesting one because without question, look at the course fit model on the screen. That is incredibly close to the Players' Championship course fit model at TPC Sawgrass, where Min-Woo Lee has done exactly that, right? He has taken that 2-iron, used it as a weapon, and really gotten his way around that golf course well. Everything from the approach play, around the green play, putting, all of that, basically right in line with the TPC Sawgrass course fit model. The only difference is Sawgrass does have a big negative weight on driving distance, which probably means that this is an even better fit for Min-Woo, but it could mean that Min-Woo will be less inclined to take the 2-iron and will try to hit driver sometimes and still might get in some serious trouble with the driver. So a little bit of speculation about Min-Woo Lee's fit, whereas someone like Daniel Berger, awesome fit here, no question. Robert McIntyre, awesome fit here, no question. Lucas Glover, Bud Cauley, some lower down the line names that I think fit pretty well here. I'll give you the only outright I have made so far this week is Nick Taylor, $6,400 on DraftKings, by the way. Has the accuracy we want off the tee. Good on approach. The short game has been pretty inconsistent for him, but when it's there, it's there. And the thing I really like is one of the most volatile players in the field. And as we know about Nick Taylor, when he's in contention, the guy has stones and he can get it done. So I do like the outright on Nick Taylor, probably more than I like him as a DraftKings play. Not the greatest scorer, is more like, when he gets it done, he typically gets it done more with bogey avoidance than with a lot of birdies. So no cut event. Probably want to lean towards the scores this week on DraftKings, but any other names that stand out to you?
If we're going to work down the board, Billy Horschel, I like him getting back on Bermuda greens here. That was the only reason he really missed the cut at the Masters is because he really struggled with the putter. Bud Cauley was another name that really stood out.
Yep.
Trying to think of who else. I really like Denny McCarthy this week. Obviously, Joe, like you said, it's so much like the players, and we saw what that he's worked himself into being in the conversation, even in the better fields, in my opinion. That's kind of where I've kind of started. I don't know if you really have an opinion there. Or...
I think the most encouraging thing about Denny is that it's no longer the Cam Smith route where he's losing in ball striking, gaining around and on the greens. His iron play has been really good this year, like really, really good this year. He's not losing strokes off the tee. He's not gaining, but he's not losing. He's a more complete player to the point where now those spike weeks with the putter, which happen quite a bit because he's Denny McCarthy, they don't just mean he finishes 30th to 40th. They mean he's in contention because the ball striking floor is just a lot better. So yeah, I do think he's a very difficult one to model because our model is always going to say that a player can't continue to putt as well as McCarthy putts, but Denny McCarthy's the exception, right? Like this is like the 19th straight year that we've seen Denny lead the world in putting. So he really is that good at putting. So I do think we have him under projected a little bit, and I think he's probably worth a look at $7,900 over on DraftKings. Does score quite well because when the putter's on, it's just going to be a birdie bonanza for him. Some other names, I think Spawn and Aaron Rye are good fits. Keegan has a very nice win probability for us. Another one of those guys who's just so volatile, but like when he's on, he's going to be really on. Let's see. Pendrith continuing to project well, not a good course fit, but he's projecting well just because he's more talented, I think, than the other guys in his price range. Let's talk about Davis Thompson for a minute, though, because Thompson is a great fit for this golf course in every way except the putter is atrocious, and I have no confidence in him right now because I don't know if you saw that final round. It was one of the worst putting performances I've ever seen from anybody. Davis Thompson lost 1.5 strokes per round putting for the week. His approach play has been outstanding all season, was outstanding again at Augusta. Didn't drive it as well as he was driving it earlier in the year. But good God, dude, can you miss more putts in a single round? Let's see what this actual number turned out to be. Thompson shot 7 over in the final round. He lost 2 strokes around the green. He lost 4.2 strokes putting and 3.5 on the front 9 alone. It was awful. By the way, he lost 3.5 strokes putting on the front 9, making an 8-footer for birdie on number 2. And then it was just a train wreck for the next 7 holes. What are your thoughts on Thompson, and can we trust this guy from like a mental toughness perspective at this point?
Like I said, I just think Augusta is such a different test and a different type of putting and all of that. And I think, probably got a few negative thoughts and away it went. I would expect him to bounce back in some capacity. I don't know if that's this week. I'm not hugely high on him here, mainly because I don't view him to me, he's not going to 2-iron off the tee. He's going to have to drive it straight. I don't know if we can really trust him hitting it in play. And then if he does have any hangover from last week, I'd rather sit him out this week and wait till I have a better feel. But he's also kind of come into that conclusion, or we've kind of come to that conclusion that like when he has his A game, he can compete with anybody in the world. So
if you remember, like what we were talking about with Davis Thompson earlier this season, when through the Phoenix Open, February 9th, the pattern for him was clear. He was gaining a ton driving like every single event. It was a show every single event with the driver. His short game was unbelievable. Putting was fine, and he just kept losing strokes with the approach play. And we kept saying, like, hey, if this guy gets the irons going, he's got a chance to be a top 20, top 10 player in the world. Since then, he gained 0.56, 0.57, 0.52, 0.94, 1.67, and 1.63 strokes per round with his approach in the next 6 events. So the approach play has been phenomenal. It's been exactly what we wanted from him. He's now lost strokes off the tee in 3 out of 4 in the last 2 events. And the putter, disastrous at the API, disastrous at the Masters. It was good at the Players when he finished 10th. Like, maybe he's just becoming more of a boom bust type player, and we just have to hope that we get the same approach play, a fine week with the putter, and get the driver back. And if he can do those 3 things, he's going to contend and might win. But if he doesn't, like, there definitely seems to be a chance of, him having. We've talked in the past a bunch about, like, when a guy's not putting well, one of the dangers is that the frustration with the putter leaks into the long game and just everything spirals out of control and he shoots 7 over like he did in the final round. But you can also just see that from a week-to-week perspective. So maybe there's a high risk of, like, a missed cut, because, or not a missed cut, but a bottom 10 finish this week because the putter's not working and the ball striking goes to hell with it. But there's also a chance that he goes out and wins this event. So
he's also 25 years old. So he's got to figure it out, right? He's probably worked a little bit harder on his approach play because he saw it was hurting him. Maybe didn't work on his putting as much. Yeah. He's still got a lot to learn and figure out. And that, I think that's what shows what's so great about some of these young guys making it on tour when they're young is, you're going to see, I bet that we talk about him different in 5 years than we talk about him now, just as the evolution of golf takes over.
Yeah, and I think we saw that youth and that immaturity a little bit with his mentality, not just at the Masters, but also when in contention a couple times this year. Very much so at the Genesis. Like, he was awful on that Saturday. Going into Saturday, he had the lead. Didn't play well that Sunday either. And yet, we also saw him go 9th at the U.S. Open last year, 2nd at the Rocket Mortgage, followed up with a win at the John Deere. So, like, we know he's got it there, but he needs the confidence to be high going into those moments. I think that's the big takeaway for me. And in some ways, the confidence should be sky high. He's never hit his irons the way he has in the last couple months. The driver and the short game have been there for most of the season. But I got to think, like, his confidence with the putter right now couldn't possibly be lower. So I'm leaning towards avoiding him and waiting to see the driver and the putter bounce back a little before I go all in on him again. But I also wouldn't be mad at betting him outright and fading him on DraftKings. What do you think of that one?
Yeah, I mean, I think that we know his upside's there. It's just, kind of got to make sure that he can get it done and see what happens here.
75 to win. I'm not psyched about that, actually. I think, I won't be playing that. We only have him at 1.0% to win, so not showing any value there. I think maybe we're underestimating the volatility for him because, like I said, I think it could go one of two ways. Like, he could start out really hot with the putter and the driver, and now all of a sudden his confidence is as high as we need to be. But it's also like, if in the first 4 holes he's missed 2 8-footers, he might just eject. So maybe I don't want to be a part of that.
Yeah, and I like just the eye test. This just doesn't feel like a place that that's fit for him to compete either.
Yeah. All right. Let's see. Some surprisingly really cheap names. Adam Scott is only $6,500 this week. Has not been playing very well, but he's got a lot of talent for the $6,500 price range in this event. Gary Woodland down there at $6,300. He very easy guy to root for and has been playing some pretty damn good golf. And I did think he was worth mentioning, like, when he was in contention at the Houston Open, he did say that was the first time he felt in control of every aspect of his game and in control of his mentality and his emotions and the adrenaline in a few years. So I thought that was really encouraging. And then went out, played pretty well at the Valero Texas Open, was really bad around the greens, but drove the ball incredibly well. So I do think, he's one of those guys that, like, definitely don't think of him as being a course fit. He's not good around the greens. He's longer than he is accurate, but he also is accurate. And like Min Woo, he can dial back to that long iron and use it as a weapon off the tee. So wouldn't be surprised if he had a pretty decent week this week. And when he plays well, he's going to score like crazy. So definitely some interest there for me on DraftKings. Anything else before we move to one and done?
No, I just think it's funny that Matt Kuchar got the sponsor exemption in here.
Yeah.
But I mean, he's won. I mean, he's been a mainstay there forever, so I get it.
Yeah.
Yeah, one and done is, I mean, a little bit better for us last week. I guess you having Cam Smith hurt, huh?
Yeah. Yeah, it was not fun.
My initial thoughts this week, being an elevated event, is obviously we're so far behind still. We've got a lot to do. So we kind of, in my opinion, I don't, somebody that's not going to be chalky. Who do you look to have a chance to win and then not be chalk?
Yeah, man, because it's an elevated event, I think we'll see a ton on Scotty, Colin. We'll see a lot on Connors. I very much want to wait and see what ownership looks like on DraftKings, because I think that, as always, it'll inform us a little bit about one and done ownership. If Henley is low owned, I think he's our guy. Without question, I think Henley would be my top choice if he's fairly low owned.
Is there a way that Justin Thomas is super low owned this week? And I mean, I know it's not a great fit. I actually thought he would play good last week. He didn't. Does he come back this week? And once again, I think to your point earlier, I always think about this place compared to the players and how much everything is the same.
Yeah.
I don't love him. I'm not going to play him on DraftKings. It's not. I'm just thinking of a guy that could win, that will have very little ownership. I mean, even Cantlay falls into that. Can we be ahead of the game there? But we might have used him a couple of weeks ago.
So I'll start with JT. I don't think he'll be that contrarian, and I actually think he's a fine fit for the course. So if he is more contrarian than I'm expecting, then I would definitely be interested, because he doesn't have the accuracy off the tee, although he has driven it well at times this year, but very much has the short game and approach that we're looking for. So in the same way that a lot of time we'll play a guy who's a great ball striker and can't putt well and say, we just need one spike week putting. We just 1 week where JT is driving the ball well, accurately, and he would have as good a chance as any to win this week. I kind of like Jordan Spieth here, and I haven't said that a ton, but he's driving the ball as well as he did last year. If you remember last year, it was really strange where he was dealing with this wrist injury. We saw really bad approach play, but he was driving the ball crazy well. We couldn't figure out why. If this guy's wrist is injured, why is he driving it better than he ever has? Well, the driving has continued. He just gained over a stroke per round off the tee at the Masters, finished 14th off the back of a really strong 12th place finish at Valero. We saw flashes of excellence at the Valspar. He made too many bogeys, but he also had stretches where he was on fire. 9th at the Cognizant, 4th at the Phoenix Open. So he's shown us some real ceiling this year. The approach play was really bad at the Masters, but around the green and putting, he was fantastic, just like he was at the Valero. And at the Valspar, he gained 2 strokes on approach. So he's surrounded some really bad approach play with 2 outstanding weeks of approach play. The Phoenix Open, he gained 1.83, and then the Valspar 1.96. Man, if he bring those together, that's a win. It's not just he'd be in contention. If he plays off the tee, on and around the green, the way he has the last 2 weeks, and has the approach play that he had at the Valspar or the Phoenix Open, he's going to win the golf tournament. So very interested on DraftKings. I think he'll be low owned there. Very interested in one and done. What are your thoughts on Spieth?
Dude, I really like this idea. He also has imagination, and I think you have to have some imagination to play Harbor Town. So I think if you combine that, I'm a big fan of being involved there.
He might have too much imagination, where it's dude, just make the easy play. You don't need to try to hit the 60-yard hook. Just give yourself a wedge. But yeah, I think it's a really good point, and I think Spieth is definitely somebody who's kind of like JT, honestly. When you force them to be creative and get them out of the technique thought process, I think that helps them more often than it hurts them. Which, by the way, it also I think is exactly why Max Homa played as well as he did this past week and has played so poorly, because he's even last week he makes a swing he grabs his putter because he just hit the green and he's like making practice swings with the putter. It's like, dude, just play golf, right? Stop playing golf swing, play golf. And Augusta forced him to do that a little bit, and I think it could help Spieth and JT here a little bit. Is Homa even in this field? Should be, right? Yeah, he's here. It could not possibly project worse. In fact, I think he's the third lowest projection, only ahead of Matthew Pavone and Nick Dunlap this week for us. But is there any chance that Homa figures it out and it's worth a shot on DraftKings? Because again, like, he's one of those guys where we don't have a missed cut to worry about this week. And when he plays well, he does so with a ton of birdies.
Yeah, I'm going to wait. I got no desire to get to yet.
I think,
I just don't see him playing well. Like you said, he's still, even playing better last week, he still didn't look the part.
Yeah, I think my thought with Homa is maybe worth it in showdown if we see him playing well early on. I mean, he had lost over a stroke per round with his irons in every single event since the Century, and just gained 1.2 at the Masters. Was not putting well, gained 1.5 per round with the putter at the Masters. Continued to not drive the ball well. So I think like that's one of the things for me too, is we were so accustomed to Homa just being like an automatic half stroke gained per round with the driver when he was really at his best, and it has been atrocious. I mean, he went almost the entire 2023 season without losing strokes off the tee once. So until we see the driver come back, I think that, like, to me, that might be the biggest sign of, oh yeah, Homa's back.
Yeah, agree.
So I want to wait for that. So yeah, I think Spieth is probably number one for me. Maybe Henley number two for one and done, and that's a little bit ownership dependent. I very much don't expect ownership to go to Spieth, in which case I'll be on him in every format, but definitely one and done too.
Yeah, I can get behind Spieth for sure. And then if for some reason up top JT goes overlooked, I'd like to, for kind of the same reasons, maybe just JT to touch more upside right this second.
Yeah,
that would be it.
I also think Berger and Bobby Mack would be up there on the list for me as well if we feel the need to go even lower. Any closing thoughts here?
No, I don't think so. Like I said, I hope I get to watch more golf this week and not so many kids sports, but Easter Sunday and stuff. No, it'll be fun. I like this golf course. It's another one that I've gotten to play, so it's always fun to go back and see the stuff that you've been on. So
yeah, I haven't played this one. I will say it's not too far away now that we get the Truist Championship. Usually, previously Wells Fargo Championship held at Quail Hollow. Quail Hollow is the PGA Championship this year. The Truist is being played at Philadelphia Cricket Club. If you don't know where Philadelphia Cricket Club is, it's where I won the Pennsylvania Open. So I cannot possibly overstate how excited I am to talk about the Truist Championship in a couple weeks. So make sure you kind of bookmark, subscribe to the channel, right? Like this show, please. Comment with any changes you want, right? Justin and I are doing the show on our own now, so we can literally do whatever the hell we want, which means we can do whatever the hell you guys want. Let us know what you want more of. Do you want more stories from our playing days? Do you want more of our thoughts as players, or do you just want the type of analysis that we've been doing here, using the models, things like that? So let us know what your thoughts are in the comments. Subscribe to the channel, like the show. It will help us a ton. Thanks everyone for tuning in. We will catch you next time.